everybody had lace curtains at their windows in those days, and it was a granny thing, and they were proper old sort of heavy lace, not like the filmy nets that you get today. But they were usually used to drape over. And I come from a time when it was make, do, and mend, and recycling was a thing that you did naturally. You didn't even think about it, but you repurposed all these lovely new words I'm learning.
You were upcycling the net curtains.
I was upcycling the net curtains, and boy, did they work. That was the great thing. They did actually keep the worst of the frost off. So yes, by all means, fleece your seedlings.
Hello and welcome to episode 111 of Talking Dirty. Over at East Ruston Old Vicarage, looking cool, calm and collected on this hot, summery September day, we have Alan Edward Herbert Gray, our happy and very handsome horticulturalist.
Well, and over in Cambridgeshire, beaming away on this, shall I say, sweltering, sweaty, but not smelly day, we have the very fragrant Thodas Maria Sophia Fredriksson, who is looking absolutely charming in her, what dare I say it, your traditional sort of stripes in those wonderful oranges, pinks, yellows, creams. Whoa!
Isn't there like a novelty sweet that you used to get, like an orange?
Yes, called humbug.
Bar humbug. Back, I keep saying this, long overdue. It was episode 69, I think, that we last caught up with Stephen Paul Edney of No Name Nursery. So much has gone on between then and now, Steve. I'm excited for this episode because anyone who's watching the video will see he's currently got a backdrop of bamboo, and we are going to attempt a little look around your garden at home. The land is being saved for a future podcast because the garden at home is looking so spectacular. But we'll get on to all of that in a moment. Just a quick catch up since we last talked to you, because you've been doing Chelsea and getting out to all kinds of events. So quick kind of fill us in on what you've been up to.
Well, it's lovely to be back with you. I can't believe it's taken so long. And I didn't realise it was episode 69. That's because we call our home Sweetbriar, but it's actually 69 on Checker Lane in Ash. And it's we call it Sweetbriar because the very first plant that me and Lou ever grew together from seed was the Sweetbriar rose. So we named our home Sweetbriar.
That's lovely.
I know, it's disgusting, isn't it? Oh, makes you feel sick a bit. But I'm a hopeless romantic and Lou's the realist, and whereas I'm the one with my head in the sky all the time. But wow, have we had, I have to say, it's been an incredible and busy year. I probably bit off more than I could chew because last year, worried about just people forgetting who we are and where we are and what we're up to since the demise of Salutation. I said yes to everything. And now, as we approach the end of the summer, I'm really actually, for the first time in years, looking forward to the winter. And I didn't really think I'd say that. What gardener looks forward to the winter? I guess if you're really busy. And Chelsea was amazing to collaborate with the Plant Fairs Roadshow, or to be given these little spaces. And I should say that our displays were only 4 square meters. I would have a large display any day because everything had to be perfect. As you'd imagine, we tried to squeeze more and more and more in, but make it all look good and show off each plant. We managed to get 42 different species and cultivars of plant in 4 square meters in a display. I thought we did quite well on that, really. Mm-hmm. And we got our first medal as a nursery, which was a silver gilt, which we're very, very pleased with for such a small display.
Well, also because very, very few first-time exhibitors get gold. So it's pretty much as good as you were going to get, really.
Well, obviously, the 2 things about going to Chelsea that you should always know, and one is, if you're not chasing a gold, you're lying to yourself, because everyone should be trying to do their very best. But the flip side of that is you should be trying to do your very best for yourself and satisfy yourself. And if you can do that, it really doesn't matter what the medal is. You feel really happy, and content that you've done the best you could. And also, really, it's the public who are the ultimate judges of what you do.
I was just going to say that, Steve. I don't know that I necessarily agree with. I mean, I know the RHS and they have a judging criteria and everything else. And I think you're absolutely right. When in a funny sort of way, the exhibitor should ignore that and please themselves, because the public will tell you whether you've done a nice job or not. It doesn't have to be a load of old fuddy-duddies, dare I say it. That I mean, take the day when they were looking at Cleve West's garden and he had a parsnip in it and they didn't know what it was because he'd taken the parsnip from the vegetable garden, put it in the flower garden, and everyone, I think it's an umbellifer, Well, full marks for that one, eh?
Love it. Yeah, no, you're quite right. The public, and they're not afraid to tell you. I can remember somebody, when we did the seed head display in 2019, somebody literally walked past the display and the hand went up in the air as if to stop me from saying a word and just said, "I'm not feeling the dead stuff," and just kept walking. and so people aren't afraid.
No. But on the other hand, when you think about it, everybody's entitled to their opinion. None of us should all like the same things, but I do find it offensive. Certain people have this kind of snobbishness about it. When I told the two ladies I was doing a yellow and blue border here, they just said, "Oh, remind me to look the other way, not yellow." I just thought, who the hell do you think you are?
Because it can be, you're right, it can be a bit offensive. I mean, everyone has an opinion. And some people, are too scared to share it or maybe they don't want to share it for fear of causing offence, which they don't really want to do. But everyone has an opinion, whether they keep it to themselves or not. I think it's, what a boring world it would be. I'm always trying to get my kids to share their opinions because I don't know if it's just youth and therefore inexperience and they're a bit nervous about it, or whether it's the younger generation seem to have sort of had a little bit of giving your own opinion beaten out of them. It would seem to me, watching my four growing up, I was so much more opinionated at a younger age, but out of mine. Yeah, I've been tempered a little bit as time's gone on. Could you believe it?
I do like the way you give things names, Steve, because I mean, well, first of all, the way you don't give things names, I mean, the no-name nursery, I mean, I think that's rather fun. I love it. But the thing that you just said a little while ago, the land, we will go to the land. Because when we extended our garden into the farmer's field here, we called it the new land because it was. It's exactly what it was. And now it has names like very grand names like the East Park and all that nonsense. But I mean, it was just the new land, and you're talking about the land. I sympathise and empathise with that.
Do you know, we wrestled for ages over what to perhaps call the land, give it some poncy name, perhaps.
It will come.
I'm sure, and I think the thing is as a gardener, particularly once we've got a few part-timers now and some volunteers helping us out, and so sometimes you start to give names to areas because you're trying to identify where they're meant to be going to work. Yeah. And so we're starting to have names for certain areas within the garden or within the land, but the land is, for me, it's just a way of reminding us that we're only temporary custodians.
Yeah.
And it's had many guises before we've owned it, and it'll have lots more after we're gone. But just as long as none of my children build on it, I've told them, if you build on the land, houses, if you knock all my plants down, cut down all my trees and coming back to haunt you, I said, your inheritance is in the land. Look after it.
Well, I mean, by the time they get hold of it, it'll be all of these wonderful established plants, a whole seed bank of exciting things. So a
bank of weeds. Yeah. No.
Some of which might be exciting things. And we definitely must do a tour of the land at some point, but we're going to get stuck into your garden at Sweetbriar in a little bit. Before that, before the sun comes and blasts this currently shady end of the garden, you have a few select plants that you've picked out in pots to show and tell first. So we're essentially getting double helpings of show and tell from Steve on this episode. You can see why I'm excited for it. So what would you like to hit us with first for show and tell?
This is exciting. Okay, let's start with something that I picked up as Oh, look, it's variegated on variegated. Oh, that's almost hideous. This Chlorophytum, Sandersonia, this is Starlight. I picked this up when it was shortlisted for Plant of the Year. And you can see how it's got that spider plant look about it. Now, when I first got this, they were touting it as a hardy Chlorophytum. What is hardy? I think is, particularly with the winter we've just had, where so many plants that lots of us considered hardy just bit the dust. So I think hardy is relative to where you are. It can probably cope with about -7. We've certainly managed to kill it, but not after we divided it, because like a lot of people, when you get a new plant, you want to test it out in a whole range of different situations. It seems to prefer a bit of dappled light shade, particularly from the sun in the middle of the day. But if you give it too much shade, it goes a bit spindly and doesn't flower, and it really does have a very pretty flower. These huge seeds really make the stems arch over, and it's a proper little white starry flower with a yellow anther that really protrudes when you look carefully at it, which is really typical of spider plants. But we made sure we divided the plant up several times before experimenting in a range of different situations to see how well it got on. But I have to say, in a pot, as part of just a pot display on a patio, it's fab. I love it. It's not evergreen. It is deciduous, unless the winter is really mild or you have a really sheltered spot for it. I guess in a greenhouse, if it was heated to kind of +3 or 4, it probably would be.
I think it looks like a brilliant plant. Regarding hardiness, you just said there about lots of people losing things over the last winter. I think here we were very, very lucky. We had -3 on one night. No, -4, I beg your pardon, on one night, which is really unprecedented for us. But there was no long duration, which is the problem you get when you have really hard frost. But Jeffrey Smith once, years ago, on Gardener's Question Time, BBC Gardener's Question Time, when asked if something was hardy, he just replied, "In the right place."
That's so true.
It is.
There are very few plants that are genuinely bomb-proof, that you can put them anywhere and they would be tough enough to survive any conditions. There is few and far between. I've been surprised with the more traditional house plants, spider plants, in the fact that we planted them out into our jungle beds at Salutation several years ago, and where it was so dry, even through the winter, because there was a lot of evergreen above them, that they came back, and it wasn't until about June they reappeared, once the soil was really warm. And so when I saw this one, I thought, well, if it's got a sniff of hardiness or just a little more toughness, it's got my vote, because I like variegation. I know it's not for everyone, but I'm okay. And there is good and bad variegation, I should add. And so again, it comes back to our own opinion of things, isn't it? And
exactly.
I think,
exactly. Yeah. Spotted laurel is one person's cup of tea and another person's hate. But I said for lots of other variegated plants and variegated leaves. I had the conversation with Christopher Lloyd many, many years ago, and he encouraged me to look. And he said, "Now take that leaf away. How many striations did it have down the middle?" I said, "Don't know." He said, "Well, you didn't look at it, did you?"
Yeah. So many people look and very few see.
Yeah.
They very rarely see. I always think gardens, because they're so personal, they're like a living autobiography.
Yes.
Because they are. Why on earth would you have anything in your garden that you don't like? And if you don't like it, it won't be in your garden for very long, hopefully.
Yeah.
Because that would be stupid. Why would you waste your effort and energy and time surrounding yourself with things that you don't find beautiful?
It's one of the things I love about growing plants as well, and having them in your own garden, particularly if you can grow them from seed and you have that extra sort of care and love because you've nurtured it right from a little speck into a plant. You really look at all the details, I think, more. You go to visit a garden and you try to look and see, but it's overwhelming. There are all these things. I mean, particularly go somewhere like East Ruston, you can just easily get overwhelmed. But when you actually grow a plant and you're really looking at it and taking photos and zooming in, that's one of the things I really love about gardening.
I think the other thing that I would say about falling in love and liking a plant, it depends on how it's grown, how well it's grown, and all the rest of it. But the other thing, I think it depends on how it's displayed. I mean, what are its neighbours? Who does it shine? Is it a plant that fades gently into the background? Is it a backing singer, or is it the star? All of that matters, and it depends how you see it and the way it's used. So I mean, there's just so much. It's so, I was an antique dealer years ago, and I had a philosophy: never mind about how popular the antique is that you're probably bidding for. Just remember, there's something for everybody. If only you can lay your hands on that customer, they'll come and buy it. It's the same with plants, because what you love, I don't. What Steve loves, I don't. So on and so forth. But it's just such a wonderful melting pot. It makes it also thrilling, and it makes for original combinations as well in plant and use of plants, I think.
Yeah, you're quite right, Alan. I have to say, some of the most exciting plants can be used in such a dull way, or in a way that just kills their beauty because of the associations with plants around them. And I know that's a bit subjective, but no, you're spot on. I think, a plant grown really well and used really well can be a thing of beauty, even if you're just admiring it in somebody else's garden. You don't wish to own it yourself.
Yeah. Well, actually, to visit the topic of yellow flowers, which obviously comes up time and time again that people are not fans of them, as Rosie Hardy will point out often and with great enthusiasm, add yellow to a border and it really helps plants to sing and brings out characteristics. So that kind of idea of combining things. I mean, certainly something I found with having fun cutting flowers from the allotment is this Dahlia Jomanda. Put that with Bennery's giant white zinnias, which are kind of an off-white, brings out completely different tones in the flower to if you put it with something dark like the Sam Hopkins. It's just it's almost like a slightly different flower because of its mates in the vase with it.
I love it. I mean, I'm a sucker for a dahlia anyway. Actually, I haven't. I can't believe it. I don't. Oh no, I'm lying. I have got a dahlia to show you in a minute. But that's. I thought. Hang on a minute. No, I have even got. I've got a couple of species dahlias to show you in the garden, and I've got another big blousy dahlia. But I thought I'd move on to it. Talking of things that are really gaudy. Cannas. I mean, I'm such a sucker for a canna. Hang on, here we go. Oh. This is it's a sort of apricot with orange in it, and this is actually it's a dark foliage canna. It's one of our seedlings. So we've been growing lots of cannas from seed. Sorry. So I've been trying to get my son into gardening a little bit, and we started him off with things like lithopes, which are as he calls them, the living stones, or as he calls them, the bum plants.
Yes,
because they look like a bottom. And I thought, well, anything to draw you in, let's go with that. And so you can see that our level of intelligence, it's the bottom plant. But I had him under duress, helping me scarify canna seeds, and this plant, you can see, is about 1 meter tall. It's in flower. It's got multiple shoots. That was seed that we scarified in February. Oh. So we literally just got a file, and because it hurts your fingers after a couple, we had a little set of tin snips, and we were just, rubbing away at the file until you could just see the little bit of white in the embryo of the seed, because the Indian shot plant is a sort of one of their common names. And that physical coating on the seed is incredibly strong. So it takes a long time to soften if you just plant them into compost. So we put them in a bag with damp compost and a bit of vermiculite or perlite. And then we pop them on a little tray on top of a radiator in February to get them to kickstart into growth. And then you get a really long growing season. So you can get them in flower first year from seed. The parent of this one was Wilhelm's Pride. Which is a beautiful dark canna, and the dark foliage has passed on into this one as well. But I would say about 40% of the seedlings came up with green leaves, and some of them came up green leaves with flushings of purple through them. Some of them had yellow flowers, some were yellow with flecking, some are 2 meters tall, some are only about 1 meter tall, because we've got about 30 different cultivars and a few different species of Canna, all quite close together in our prop area. And so who knows we know what the mummy plant, we took the seed from Wilhelm Pride, but who knows how promiscuous it's been and you know what it's got into.
I tell you what, Steve, that sounds like a whole lot of fun for everybody.
Yeah. You know, sometimes when I say to people at talks, when I'm talking about young seedlings, I said, you know, really from a plant's point of view, gardening is all about, or from a plant's perspective, it's all about sex and death. And you know, it's a bit of a taboo subject, don't mention that. You get some looks from people. And I'm like, and you could almost argue that maybe that is what all of life is about in a way. So I love growing stuff from seed, and Cannas, you know, first year from seed and flowering.
That's
so
brilliant. Well done.
Yeah, thanks. I'm really excited by we've got so many seedlings, and I would say out of 200 seedlings, we've kept back about 8 to move forwards to see how they develop in the next few years. The rest we've just sold as no-name seedlings, so they are unnamed, but that then gives them an association back to the no-name nursery.
Exactly.
That's lovely.
Well done.
I'd like to say that was planned, but I didn't realise that would work so well until we actually had seedlings that didn't have names.
You can try this on so many different things.
Yeah, well, with dahlias, I was talking with a real dahlia expert, Andy Vernon, and he wrote a great book on dahlias. So his book for me was quite revolutionary, because he grouped dahlias not by their flower types, but by their colour. And I got to meet Andy, and he came down and gave a lecture at Salutation. And he said when he was in Mexico, one of the things that struck him was that because it's a wild flower for them, they would sow dahlias and they would bring them into flower, and you'd visit a garden centre or a nursery and you just bought the one you liked. They couldn't believe we named them. Why would you name them? You just pick the one you like, and that's yours. There you go. You know, so actually it's the same with the Cannas. I just say to people, well, it doesn't have a name, but if you like it, buy it and grow it and love it.
I love taking the inspiration. I mean, I suppose makes perfect sense. Grow things you like. Doesn't matter what they're called.
The trouble is, as a gardener, we love to know what things are. You know, we love to know, that's this species and it's this named cultivar. And you know, there's a little bit of an obsession with us gardeners that we like to know what things are. And so if you take that away from us in a way that's almost a bit rebellious, which of course I like, but also it can end in a bit of a muddle if you're not careful, particularly if somebody decides that it should have been a named variety, and so they give it a name because they find something it looks a bit like, and then things get muddled up in cultivation. So I can understand. I imagine if members of the herbaceous committee that I sit on at the RHS are listening to this, they're like, no, we named cultivars, you know, because then you know exactly what it is. If you just release seedlings, you know, or there'll be all hell to pay.
There is also a FLOMO element here. FLOMO being that fear of missing out you get about a flower or a plant, because there are people I've commented saying, oh, in that bunch of flowers, what is that beautiful thing? And it'll be like, oh, well, it's probably a cross between this one and this one, which I have in my cutting garden. And they've turned up with a seedling. And you're like, damn it, I wanted to buy a packet of seed of it and I can't.
Yeah, exactly. And so there is that element, which is why we've held on to what we feel are the best. And that may not be the ones that are the best, because other people have a different opinion, but some of them may get named as new varieties. We've already decided that really good dahlias, we've got a number of good seedlings coming on, and we'll wait a few years for those to develop. When we release them, we're going to name them after cocktails, because dahlias are so jazzy, aren't they? I love them. And, you know, they feel like they should have names like, you know, Sex on the Beach, or, you know, whatever it happens to be. They've got to have the name cocktails. For me, they're very generous, and it feels like party time when you're in a border full of dahlias. I just get very excited, you know, in the autumn with all those flowers. In fact, not even the autumn. a lot of my dahlias are in flower here in East Kent by July. So they just keep going. And I'm sure Alan's the same, because we kind of share this East Coast together.
Exactly. Yes, we do. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. You lucky ducks.
We are, because we got away with murder as well during the winter. We didn't lose nearly as much as many did. And so I almost started to feel a bit guilty that other people had lost so much and we hadn't. Oh. So moving on to another, now this is a new one for me, so I wanted to share it with you all. One of the, so the Aster Mönch.
Yep.
This is actually frikartii, yeah. This is Wunder von Stäfa, which Helen Picton says is better. She said it's shorter and it branches more, but the flower is almost identical, so you really can't tell the difference. But she said as a garden plant, that Wunder von Stäfa is superior. And so I, of course, bought one on her recommendation, as I did a number of different asters. And I just think it's gorgeous, because it's that classic, it's got quite a fine ray floret and a little yellow disc in the middle. But the ray florets are really long and they're quite slender, so that they're a big flower. I actually, on purpose, just because I'm a bit perverse like that, I've never grown Mönch, because it's so ubiquitous. No, that's the right word. Is that the right word?
Ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous. Thank you very much, says the boy from Margate, trying to be a bit too posh. It's common, a bit like myself, and so I didn't want to grow it, because I thought, well, there's loads of people out there growing it, that I want to grow other things. Wunder von Stäfa. I just think it's amazing, and it really does branch. Look at that.
Yeah. Actually, I think Helen has a point with this, because I know this Wunder von Stäfa, and it is a very good one. But lots of the other frikartii are not so good. I mean, Mönch is one that I've lost. I've grown and lost it 2 or 3 times, and I don't think it's my fault. I think it's not a strong growing plant. Other people might prove me wrong, of course. But there's one other variety that I particularly love, and it's called Forncett Flourish. And it was bred by, I can't remember the name of the 2 chaps that had the nursery, and it was in Cheney Lane, Forncett St Mary in Norfolk. And Forncett St Mary is the village that I was born in. Well, I was born in St Peter, but I mean, there was St Peter, St Mary, and Forncett End. They were all of a lot, and the family all lived there. But Forncett Flourish is one that I grow purely for sentimental reasons, and it is a good one. But I think the nice thing about frikartii asters is they have an airiness about them. They have this kind of openness that is much more naturalistic and much more in tune, perhaps, with today's mode of gardening, if you like.
Yeah, I like that mode of gardening. It's that, yeah, that's a nice way to describe it. Yeah, no, I think it would work beautifully in at the edge of, say, a meadow where you want to make a sort of concerted effort between the sort of contrived where we look after it and the more wild space beyond. Yeah, this would mix into that space beautifully.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah, fantastic. So that's an exciting plant for me. Now, something I've grown for a long time. This is a Cuphea, but I got it. It's a cigar plant. This one's called David Verity. And it's huge. See, I have to say, I've grown quite a few of the Cupheas over the years, and I guess my disappointment with them is that they're often very small and so easily overlooked. Whereas David Verity, it gets to about 1 meter tall. I mean, this is a cutting, this plant in a pot, and it's already about 60 centimeters tall. A really deep green leaf that's really, really leathery
and quite floriferous too. I mean, there's a good amount of flower on that.
Wow, yeah, absolutely, and it really does stop you in your tracks in a garden. And if you've got a jungle garden, because they quite like, sun to light shade, not too much shade, otherwise they'll sulk and stop flowering. It doesn't really kill them, but they just won't flower. But the flower is large, and the plant in all its parts is large. Now, I think this is available now in the UK, but certainly when I laid my hands on it, the nursery lady, and I won't say who it is because she said, "You didn't get this from me, okay?" So I don't know where it came from, but I know it's available in the US. But until recently, I don't think it's been available in the UK. And in a couple of weeks' time, I'm heading down to a project we're working on. We're looking after a garden down in, we're designing and helping the owners of a garden down in Dorset. And we're going to go and see Mike, who I know has been on a few times, Mike Clifford. And I'm taking one of these for him because he's grown a few, but he doesn't have this one. He's going to love it.
Well, it's impressive to have a plant Mike Clifford doesn't have. I love Cupheas, and the tubular flowers on that, you're right, really sizable. And they look an orangey red, then going to like a yellowish tip.
That's it. And you can see why it gets its name, the cigar plant, because it literally looks like someone's lit the end of a cigar. Mind you, an orange cigar, you might worry about popping that in your mouth. But yeah, it does certainly lives up to its name in its flower. So it's an amazing perennial with huge flowers, orange all the way down and then it gets its little anther that just pokes out, because isn't it, it's pollinated by hummingbirds. Is that right? In the US, but obviously here I'm often surprised about our exotics, about how useful they are to lots of our native insects. But I don't think this one, maybe if you've got a moth or something, it could get in there. But the entrance to get in at the flower is so small, I doubt very much it's going to be that useful.
Lots of those, I mean, there are bees, for instance, are quite crafty creatures, because there's I don't know which one it is, but I was watching it the other day, a bee pollinating or getting the pollen from our fuchsias by going into the top of the not the flower itself or the tube or the corolla, but going in, boring into the tube at the top of the flower and getting it that way. And the other thing I noticed that when we had flowers out in the desert, that this year, the desert wash, which were pollinated by hummingbirds, some of them were pollinated by wasps, some of them by bumblebees, and a lot of them by honeybees and also hoverflies. And they were the four main insects that were on these type of flowers. So, I mean, I don't think it really matters what you grow, because plants are adaptable to various gardens. Insects are adaptable to various plants. And I mean, they're all opportunists and they'll use it for the best of their ability.
Yeah, it's a good comment, because it's something, obviously, having a jungle garden that's said to me again and again. So it's something I'm very conscious of. Our jungle garden here that we're going to go and look around in a moment has won a gold award for gardening for wildlife from Kent Wildlife Trust. So it's possible and more than possible. It's very doable, but we are conscious to try and make sure we've got something for insects as well as for humans in the garden. But you're right, they are real opportunities. I couldn't believe when I was listening to Radio 4. Well, first of all, I can't believe I was listening to Radio 4, but just because I've obviously reached that age. And and
things happen, Steve. Things happen.
I still kick myself. I can't believe it. Makes me laugh every time. The boy from Margate listening to Radio 4, and there was a lady talking about bees, wasp species, and she said there were 70,000 different species of wasp in the UK, and even the presenter said, "Sorry, did you say 7 or 70?" She said, "No, 70." I just can't. That's incredible, isn't it? So I think you're probably right. There is an insect out there for every flower, whether it's native or non-native.
Yeah.
They'll find a way of getting in there.
Absolutely.
Now, I'll tell you what. I'll do this one, and then we'll head off around the garden. Now, I got this from Miles Japanese Maples. He's a really lovely guy and a proper botanist, and he runs a small nursery like us that specialises in maples. And this is Acer negundo, subspecies mexicanum. Now, he gave this as a gift from him, because we're both members of the Plant Fairs Roadshow. And what made me laugh is people that know me well know of my general aversion to Japanese maples. I can't stand them really, and I think it's because it's not that I don't like them. I find them incredibly difficult to use in UK gardens without them just looking a bit twee or a bit naff. I saw them at Westonbirt and they looked incredible. So I think as they get larger, I like them. But little ones in pots that get caught by the wind and get frazzled in the east Kent, sunshine with our light levels. So I think part of it is because they don't like me. And so therefore I don't really like them. And then I go and make friends with a guy who's an Acer grower, and he's got lots of Japanese maples, and he is just one of the nicest guys and so knowledgeable, within his field. And we think that this might be a very good plant for stooling so that we can get gigantic leaves from it. I mean, look at the petioles, they're lovely and orangey red and very long. And the leaf, Acer negundo often has that hanging leaf that's serrated and toothed.
You often see Acer negundo variegata used as a stool plant, don't you? I mean, in a tropical kind of garden, if you like, they're stool to the ground every year, and then those huge shoots come out with these big leaves, white and green.
Yeah, down on this East Kent coast, because we're so hot and so dry, we tried that and we managed to kill it from the stooling because it was too much. So we sort of got it. It's the same with dogwoods, actually. We don't stool them every year. We do it every 2 or 3 years because they just have the vigor. Yeah. So similar conditions.
Yes.
You learn the hard way sometimes, don't you?
Well, you do, Steve. But you see, I would say that plants adapt to their growing conditions, but the gardener has to adapt to the growing conditions and the way the plant grows in those conditions as well.
Yeah, no, quite right. And so we were ambitious to have lots of coppiceable and stool, trees and shrubs that are hardy but give that exotic look, because we didn't want to have to keep lifting and shifting everything. But we ended up killing it by stooling it too often. But I'm hopeful for this because the leaves are enormous. So I think with stooling, we'll have an incredible jungle foliage that will take people by surprise, because they're often, like you say, Alan, they're used to seeing the variegated form. Yeah. And this mexicanum subspecies might just have legs, as they say.
I'll tell you what plant that is particularly good for stooling to give that lovely exotic and a kind of ferny look as well, and that's Sambucus black lace, because we do that in one of the borders here. We have 4 in each border, and we cut them down to ground level every year, and I then pinch the tips out, and you get this great foam of lovely lacy, very dark brown foliage, and it works we've been doing it for about 6 to 7 years, and they're still absolutely fine. They haven't died yet, is what I'm really saying.
That was one of the things when we were at East Ruston last year. There was it was the most exciting garden I've been in for years. There was idea after idea after idea. So I'm not surprised you're full of ideas, Alan, and for stooling and what works and what doesn't.
Can I reciprocate the compliment? Because you learn, don't you? You and Lou very kindly gifted me a plant of Sparmannia africana variegata. It is fabulous. I took some cuttings, only 2 of which took, I have to say. That's my fault for neglecting them probably. But your original plant that you gave me is now in a huge, great tub, and it's standing on my plant peninsula where, I put things I want to show off really. And I have this peninsula of potted plants. And every day it gets commented on. It's absolutely stunning, and it's flowering at the moment as well. Thank you.
Fantastic. Oh, you're welcome. Well, thank you, for making such an amazing gardener. Me and Lou were blown away with it. There were more ideas than some people come up with in a garden in their whole lives. And I know you've dedicated your life to that garden, but it was amazing. We loved every minute of being there. And unfortunately, we had to go and sell plants, which was a bit of annoyance because I wanted to spend more time looking around.
Well, even if you had a whole day, I finally the other week got to spend a whole kind of day walking around the garden, and it still isn't enough. So you basically can never have enough time. You need to kind of go every week for like a whole day, and then maybe you might start to get on top of it.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you and see you and everything. Uncle Alan.
Hello.
Hello. Now I seem to have lost Daddy. We've lost Daddy, haven't we? Peter. I've lost Alan now.
That's it. Everyone's abandoned ship. Quick.
Very nice background today.
Ta-da! One of my bamboos that I have no idea what it is. The thing is, I bought 2 different bamboo books. I have had various emails with bamboo experts. None of them can tell me exactly what it is. And I stupidly brought it at the Garden Museum in London about 8 years ago. He said what the name was. Oh, it's a bit of a mouthful. And I thought, I'll remember that. No, I don't.
Who did you buy it from, Steve?
And that's the worst thing. I can't remember. It was just a small nursery. He was just selling a few plants from his London garden. He wasn't a nursery with a name. He was just someone selling at the Garden Museum.